distracted. This is a fundraising workshop, guys, which hopefully has a few consequences, and hopefully it's very useful for you guys considering hacking. So I'm going to use the whiteboard function. I think that went down particularly well last time, so I'm going to use it again. This is my screen. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Steve?
Yes, good to go, Anthony.
Guys, if you have any questions, please drop them into chat. I have that open, so I'll happily answer any of those. I'm going to try and run not too long, and if you have any questions or want to take the discussion anywhere in particular, please do let me know. This is about fundraising. This is for our DAO hack. Steve's putting lots of links in, so if you do have any questions about the DAO hack, he will happily answer them. Great. So I'm going to take this broadly in two directions, guys. One of them is, let's actually do it this way. One of them in terms of like, how can we do this? How to fundraise for a crypto startup. And second is how to fundraise for a DAO. And they're not the same. So I'm actually going to start with, I think, the more interesting one, which is how to fundraise for a DAO. A quick refresher on what is a DAO. Maybe we can make these boxes a bit smaller. So what is a DAO? Well, we said that a DAO is, definitionally speaking, why do they always go so far down? A decentralized autonomous organization, which broadly means, and we should, I think, unpack each of the three things in turn. One, it is has no one owner. Well, it's owned by the community. We'll get to that question. Two, it is run by a smart contract. And three, it's meant to be an organization, so it's meant to be company-like. It's meant to mimic a quote-unquote real-life entity. So we're trying to achieve some of the company-like features that we have in real life, but running by a smart contract, have it owned by the community. This is what we want to kind of achieve in the ideal form. So that's what is a DAO. So the next question is like, well, what does it mean to fundraise for a DAO? And I think it broadly means a few things, if this is not going to be extremely ugly. Well, one is we have to ask, which I think is linked to here, like, what types of DAO are there? And those of you that kind of came last week will be kind of familiar with this. Let's put this here. So one type of DAO that we have, actually, let's go a little bit further across. One type of DAO that we have is investment DAO. It should be fairly obvious how this fundraises, but we'll talk about it in a moment. The second is a kind of community or a purpose or like pressure group, which again we'll talk about in a moment. And the third type, I would say broadly, is a governance structure, or governance for a protocol. These, I think, are broad three types we care about. Now, clearly, an investment DAO is there to invest. So what we want here is effectively fundraising here means equals collecting funds to make joint investment decisions from, or to make joint using these funds. That's what fundraising means here. A pressure group or a kind of a purposeful pressure group, this means like Constitution DAO, Ukraine DAO, things like this, like communities. I think we can also add just like communities, societies in here. What we'll talk about here is fundraising here means operational capital. Or it means operational capital or money to donate towards a cause. Okay. And governance for a protocol, kind of fundraising means there's actually less fundraising you need to do. We actually mean just fundraising for that protocol. Then the DAO manages this treasury. So it really, there's not fundraising for a protocol isn't really a thing. Like a protocol is pre-fundraised. So within this context, like the only one we think we kind of care about here, the only really ones we will kind of want to talk about are an investment DAO and that is going to so annoying. Is the investment DAO and the community purpose one. So the only ones we the only ones we care about are these two. Now, fundraising for investment DAO, like basically, is about you fundraise from your friends or your social network. Really, there's no it's like me saying to the Encode team, let's do a DAO to invest in startups. Let's pool our money together. It needs to be first and second connections. Like anyone can have an investment DAO, but to really do it properly, you basically need to fundraise from your friends and network. And then long term, what tends to happen, and we'll talk about a few examples here, is when the DAO becomes good at investing, people want to be members. For the access. So this is kind of an investment DAO, and a BitDAO is a very good example. Now BitDAO is different. Simply, there's I guess kind of two structures to kind of. No, actually, there's only one. BitDAO is just a very big investment DAO. You typically get smaller ones, so we can talk about some examples. Why is there a frame? What do we think this frame does? Why is there a frame? Go frame. There's a few examples we can kind of talk about. Let's put my examples down here. I'm actually going to try a new thing of doing it. So we're going to make this smaller. So you've got your BitDAO. Someone is typing. I think that's Steve. Steve, you need to mute yourself. You've got your BitDAO. You've got your Metacartel Ventures. You've got, let's put in here, I think we used to put DeFi Alliance. And let's put the DAO as well. All of these are examples of investment DAOs that broadly you need to be a member. BitDAO, you just need to own the Bit token to kind of contribute. In fact, I don't think you can become a member in terms of. Oh, this is a good question for me. I don't think you can become a member in the sense of you get to put your funds to use. I think you need to own the BitDAO token, which means we need to talk about DAO tokens in a bit, which we will. Okay, so one example is this kind of investment DAO, which fundraising isn't really relevant. The second is kind of this, and I guess there's kind of two elements we want to talk about. Oh my God, where did my little thing go? I guess there's kind of two things I want to talk about here. One is a token, and one is just donations. One is donations. So this is just like you start a group and someone donates some ETH towards it. Like this is fundraising from DAO. Again, I think it's very much still first and second kind of donations. You could, for instance, have a kind of membership fee, would be a good example. Don't worry, Nathan. Or you could have a token, which we'll talk about in a moment, because it basically goes back to the protocol. Okay. So one way is just like accept donation fees upon membership. Again, then the kind of amount of money you have is linked to how popular a group is. This one, I'm not going to talk about this because this is a protocol. A kind of key thing I want to just stress here with this, which is popularity dictates fundraising. Like how popular a DAO is, how many members it has, it's kind of the most important thing. Yeah, that's the thing to say. Cool. So this is DAO fundraising. It's kind of, this is the more boring stuff. So I want to kind of go into fundraising in general. Obviously, I'm just going to say as kind of an aside that I'm going to call protocol / protocol. A DAO can be a startup. That's one thing. A DAO can be a startup. So I'm going to put this in here, which is why, or I'm going to put it even like front and center, which is why there's kind of a relevance to this discussion about why I'm like, well, C token. So, okay, in general fundraising in crypto, a few things to say. One is that, tell you what, we're going to go a bit funky. I'm going to put you up here. Cool. So fundraising is easy, in crypto versus Web2 or traditional fundraising. And this is for a few reasons. Some people might be able to volunteer them. One reason is just hype. Pretty good reason. One reason is because of protocols are both users and platforms. So like a protocol on Polygon, for instance, is a user of Polygon. So that's kind of like a key kind of thing to remember. If you're on Polygon, you are still a user of Polygon. So Polygon wants to attract protocols as much as it wants to attract kind of solo or teams of developers. This third is liquidity premium. So tokens allow you to exit investments early and not to go to zero. And the fourth reason is every protocol has a treasury, so can fund projects by way of grants or investment. So these are kind of four reasons why fundraising is quote unquote easier than traditional kind of funding. Cool. Why is that? It's gone both ways. Okay, cool. So how do you actually fundraise? Well, the first thing to say is, I think I gave a different presentation recently about marketing. Hype is everything in crypto. Now, there's both a kind of, oh my God, will this go? Ah, look how pretty that looks. There's kind of two ways of reading this. One is the kind of cynical view. It's mostly hype. And two is the kind of view that hype is a proxy. Hype is a proxy for community and virality. And it's probably a little bit of both. That because crypto is mostly speculation, some would argue that hype is just a product of that and there's nothing really there. Some would say hype is a proxy community. Now, the reason why I think this one is the one I want to kind of unpack is because protocols are decentralized, so need community. And if you are getting community early, that is a great sign that you are that this product is useful. Let's actually put this as a separate point. If you get community early and following early, it is a great. I'll answer Boon's question on that. It's a great proxy for virality and user base. Boon, I haven't actually looked at your question, so let's have a look. You might be about to stump me. Ah, very nice question. Okay, we'll get to this. Cool. Remember, pretty much just a short answer. Pretty much every token is a utility token. So kind of just copy what other people have done because nothing is a governance. Not all governance tokens are utilities. They're not security, but we'll talk about that. Let's actually put a point later to say. I'll tell you what. Let's put a point that says. I'll tell you what, I'll put it up here. Tokens for fundraising. Display. So we'll touch on that a bit later, just for you, Boon. Right, okay, so hype is everything in crypto. So if you get community early, it's a great proxy for virality. So what is community? So there's basically two things that I think are great indicators of product future success. Discord and Twitter. This is where communities. Oh, Discord, Twitter, and Telegram have great socials with great following. It's a nice proxy for success. Proxy here being like reasons to think success might happen. Oh, look at that. We're gone all squiggly. But more importantly, what they also allow you to do is it's an easy way, since everyone is on socials all the time, it's an easy way to get spotted, particularly if you are active. So that kind of leads to a kind of a first conclusion, which is a key piece of advice, which is to fundraise, have great startup and personal socials and engagement. Because I think extremely important. This is like one way you find, and obviously like linked to this is some kind of other core advice. So have a product people want to use, like a very simple way to kind of think you should follow. Second, you want to have an engaging narrative or topic area, e.g. DAOs right now, DAO tooling. That's why you're kind of doing this hackathon. That'd be an also an engaging narrative. And the other thing is to, I think a key quality I often see is to be constantly moving, iterating, shipping. Look unstoppable. So these three kind of things I think are extremely important and nice kind of things that you should do to fundraise. This is kind of talking about the theory behind fundraising. One kind of good rule of thumb, which is that maybe we can put it over here. Key advice 2. Oh no, we've got the thing. Key advice, because funding is so big in crypto, if you are good, you will be spotted. So if you're kind of then by the reverse, if no one is paying attention, you might just be bad. And that's okay. But this, I think, is another kind of key piece of advice you should remember. Okay. So this is like we kind of talked about that kind of hyped everything in crypto. Money's kind of simpler to get in crypto. So you should use hype, you should have great socials, and you should kind of broadly have these 3 qualities. Well, what about the kind of actual like process of like fundraising? Because this is kind of very general. So what is the actual process of raising money? Well, I think there's broadly 2 areas to consider, really. In fact, I'm going to take this even wider, just so we don't run into that hype thing. Broadly, I think there's kind of 2 areas to consider. One is private funding, VCs, grants. And second is public funding, which is kind of, I guess, more traditionally be like ICOs, but it's like donations. It's we'll call it that: ICOs, donations, etc. So this first one is a thing in DAOs. Like you can just donate to new DAOs and you'll typically be given a token, and this token will represent your investment. So donate money, gets token that represents engagement. So it's like this is kind of hard to represent membership. This is kind of hard to do, honestly. And it's hard just because like you need a following to begin with. The traditional route is private funding, and I think there's broadly a few stages of private funding, which I'll kind of talk about now. You've got, let's get a smaller bubble. So we've got, let me do it like this. I'm going to call it pre-seed / grant. I'm actually going to go even a step before. Hackathon / ideation. Pre-seed / grant. Seed. Series A. And I would then suggest kind of public sale. Can be Series B. Now, the assumption here is assuming end in token. So we're actually going to go back to our token stuff here. So why would you do a token in the first place? Well, a few reasons. One is that it binds the community together and incentivizes people to work towards the whole. Two, like literally it like is a way to grant membership or belonging whilst doing something that's integrally supports the protocol. And three, it's a liquid way of doing the last two things. A way that allows me to come in and out very quickly. Now, Boone could have mentioned like this idea of governance versus the utility token. So a governance token is actually, sorry, I'm going to do security versus utility token. So a security represents a yield generating asset effectively. This is, I think there's, I'm looking at the definition, is a certificate that has a marginal value and can be traded, but I think it represents a yield generating asset, something that itself has a value that you can define on paper, that's linked to because it's worth something. Like a stock represents the value of a company, or a share of the value of a company. A bond represents the value of debt. A utility token refers to just having a use, and not representing anything financial. Now, the crucial thing to say is you might be like, well, Anthony, I've seen utility tokens, they have value. So we can put a value on this utility, but this utility in and of itself does not have value. So I can say it is valuable to be able to use this in this way, but it's like, it is valuable to have a key that opens a door, but opening a door is not itself something that gets me money. Or like, I can have a utility that is, which is, this token allows me to be a member of this DAO, but being a member of the DAO doesn't give me money. It might have money for some separate reason, but it not intrinsically will give me money. There's no money like that the DAO is producing in and of itself that I'm benefiting from. If like the token represented a profit share in the DAO that's guaranteed every year of $1 million a year, this would be. So we can put a value on this utility, but this utility does not in itself have value. In itself have value. This is the key thing to kind of know. Let's draw nice lines. Now, securities are extremely regulated. Security regulated, utilities are not. Or security, I'm going to put security tokens are regulated, utility tokens are not. Now you might say, look, it does, isn't it weird that it's not about the usage, it's about the asset itself. Like, regardless of whether it is valuable to have access to this community, the society, the market has dictated that it is valuable, therefore it's bit security. This is a whole different debate. Pretty much, I'm pretty sure in saying, let me check one thing. Every token is a utility token. So yeah, that's just something to bear in mind. You might be like, but that's stupid. Like, how are stable coins actually utility tokens? Well, they are. So without, I'm not a lawyer, let's not get into it today. Come on, be a straight line. Okay, so now Boone asked, like, so what are the kind of maybe I can do it here. How do I ensure my token is not a security? Well, a few ways. One, it should not represent underlying capital, represent the right to underlying capital or yield. Now you might be saying, well, I know that I can tokenize my position in something. Is that security? I think that gets extremely dangerous. That kind of is, it's not a security, but like, because of the way, yeah, it's not a security, but kind of should be, to be honest. So it should not represent the right to underlying capital yield. Two, if there is financial benefit, it should be indirect, e.g. buybacks, slash changing of supply and demand. And kind of three, it should have a usage intrinsic to the protocol or DAO. So if it's just membership, like that is not, doesn't have monetary value in of itself. Oh my God, here we go again. That doesn't have monetary value in of itself. Is this going to work for me? Yes, although that's very ugly. Yeah, that doesn't have monetary value in of itself. So that's absolutely fine. So hopefully that answers your question, Boone. And how do you price utility tokens? Well, based on their utility and what you think that utility might actually be worth. So if I have, let's take an exchange token, for instance, like Binance, like let's say all transaction fees are paid in that. So I can work out a value for the utility token, which is based on an estimate of how much trading volume I'll expect there to be over time. One thing that I think I should very clearly point out is token market caps do not actually equal the total value created by the utility. So just before you do like some complex valuation thing, you should just know that this ends up with us saying they don't quite, like, it doesn't add up at all. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to go back to the stages now. So hackathon ideation is where you're kind of at now. You're thinking about the project. Pre-seed or grant is either you're kind of getting money from a protocol, yeah, either you're getting money from a protocol to build something, or that's too big, or a small starter check. Let's say less than 500K. You might be like, that's not small, but in crypto, that is small. And I'm actually going to give you valuations of companies just because I think that's kind of cool. Typically, tell you what, we'll put these bad boys here. And I think a typical good valuation here would be either 0, well, let's set a range. Let's say 0 to 10 million would be my typical kind of pre-seed. Now, seed is basically to kind of help build a mainnet product. And I think you're looking at, typically now, I think a valuation of 10 to 30 million, and you're raising about, let's tell you what, we'll put this up here. This is not going to work. That's a shame. You're raising, just so I can tell you guys, a couple of million, I'd say. Let's put valuation there before someone gets confused. Now, Series A, you're kind of, it's for scaling, basically. I don't know if I've done this right. And I think you're kind of looking at this point, and again, these valuations change. I'm kind of quoting kind of recent valuations, which are themselves inflated. I think you're looking at 30 to 100 million valuation. And then like, as we kind of get closer to public sale, basically you're kind of making the token publicly available. And you could do another way to do this is just like staking. It's just like give people rewards for using, and you would do this anyway. Typically, I think you're, I mean, depending on the market, looking at 100 million plus valuation. This kind of gives you a sense of the stage, and a lot of it is fueled by the fact you have a token, and the token is liquid, so that the exit event for the investor. Where is it? Where did I put it? Where have I put liquidity thing? Oh yeah. If let's say I invest in Steve Coin. Realistically, Steve Coin is not going to go to zero. Most tokens don't go to zero. Even the shittest ones don't go to zero. There's going to be some market for them based on their utility and based on the kind of hype that still exists. So even in the worst case, you should be able to get your investment money back. And even when it's good, you'll definitely get some of your money back. Maybe even make a profit. So in typical investment, which we haven't really talked about, equity investment, like you'd invest at all these stages, but like if the company fails, it's going to zero. Which is a kind of completely different situation. So you're like zero being the downside case, upside case being that, and you've also got two, typically in venture and equity investment, you've got two exit events, you've got the buyouts or the going public. You've got, therefore it's either going to be worth billions or worth zero. So you have to price it accordingly, and most will be worth zero. In crypto, you have tokens. So like maybe the big win isn't so big, arguably it can be, the big win is still billions. But your downside case is like it's going to be worth millions, and again, that means you keep some of your money. Now you might be like, but Anthony, you haven't told me literally like how do I get this money? Okay, we'll talk about how to. That's a nice question. How to evaluate crypto startup. So how do you actually get? If this is the ladder, how do you get to the first one? So I'm going to tell you something now, which you're not going to like to hear. Which let's call this. But how do I attract investors? I would say there's a pretty good formula here, which is it's 90% they will find you. And you can put yourself in the shop window, you can have good socials, etc. And it's 10% your network. And you can do it better by increasing your network, but like investors will find you if you've got a good product and you're out there because you'll realistically be in the community. And yeah, so this hopefully makes your mind at ease. Like if they're not finding you, like put yourself out there, but like yeah, if they're not finding you, you're probably not very good. God, this looks nice, doesn't it? So hopefully this puts it, again, the good thing you can kind of do to make it easy to find you is have kind of great socials. And I'm just going to point this. Go back, yeah, have great socials. This will make it kind of easier for you to kind of get spotted. There's a question here, which is what are the components to consider to building a great startup? I'll talk about that for now. Why don't we go over here? How to good startup, I'll call it. So one, I think the most important thing, I'm going to say in crypto. One is to have a deep knowledge of crypto, both how the market works, the discussion and narrative, and most importantly, technically. Which kind of links to, oh, that's actually going to be a bit small, which leads to the kind of next side of things, which is kind of having a product people want, which means the right ecosystem, right idea. So last time I talked about like the idea I would be doing now is like DAO tooling, which is this hackathon. So decentralized Discord, integrate snapshot and Gnosis safe more easily, better governance, etc. These are all like no-brainer ideas, and then plus do it on other chains. Like these are like all like home run ideas that people should just do and thank me later. So the first thing is to kind of have a deep knowledge of crypto. 2 is like having a product people want, and 3 I think is grit, determination, not gonna fail mindset, which is I think a product of. I mean, you can really get theoretical here. This is a product of circumstance and personality / character. And for instance, like it's hard if you've got kids to be a great founder because it's hard to dedicate yourself to it. It's hard if you want to go to the gym twice a day to like find the time to kind of be a founder and deal with the stress. Maybe that works for you. It's hard if you are based in a jurisdiction. It's less hard now, a jurisdiction where you haven't got access to great network. Because it's going to be harder to make contacts and kind of travel. It's harder if you're poorer because like you can't do the travel or like you have to rely on salary. Like, but then there is kind of a second point, which is personalities or your personality to some extent creates your circumstance. So like, I like working hard. So I like design a structure for allowing me to work hard. Like you're like, you can see this in many respects. So like if you are like the type to eat lots, I bet your fridge is full of like bad things. Like you're like, you could be like, I ate lots because there's all this good stuff in my fridge, but who created the stuff in the fridge? Well, you did. If you like, if you kind of want to kind of dedicate yourself to working on your startup and really kind of put yourself full in, how many hours are you making available to do that? What are you going out socializing with your friends every night? Like these things are choices that influence it. So I think broadly these three things like grit and determination, and I'm going to put percentages on them. I think that this is like at least 50% of it. I think this is kind of 25, and I think this is 25. You don't need to have it. Crypto will find a way of funding you without this. And you do, and you can if you had grit and like you had a deep knowledge of crypto, this would probably be enough. As long as you mainly had this, particularly the technical side, like technically it's like most of this 50%, at least like over half. If you just had the idea people want and grit and determination, and you didn't know how crypto worked, I think you'd really struggle. So hopefully this kind of gives you an idea. Okay, let's take some questions and see where the discussion takes us. You offer a return like assets something that is actually why is not return, so how is that view? But I don't know. I wouldn't worry too much. What's your specific idea? Remember, everything in crypto is a utility token. How many people in crypto have been investigated? It's unlikely to be you, and it's certainly not the first one they're coming for. If you like, I think this, by the way, I'm going to like evaluate your idea. Like this comes into that bit. It's like knowing that like, well, everything's utility token, no one's getting caught out. Like it's kind of like even asking the question is kind of a bit NGMI, to be honest, because it should be you know the answer is either everyone is wrong, in which case you should be betting against the market quite significantly, shorting everything, selling everything, or like the status quo is like correct and will stay correct, which is like no one has been investigated, everything is utility token. That's fine. Again, if you think there's a risk that like everyone's got it wrong and like the SEC is going to kind of go for everyone, and you price this at even 1% chance, even 10% chance, then you can construct investment narrative, because that means in 10% of cases, prices are going down massively, especially if you're like, well, it's obvious stable coins or like these yield-bearing DeFi assets are like actually securities. And in the long run, I should be betting against them, just like a side. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much. Anyone to worry about, I really, the yield-bearing DeFi assets are kind of, I'm slightly concerned about them as well as stable coins. Not stable coins that are have their own monetary systems, the phase, the fraxes, the frax less so, the floats, the rise. I mean the ones that literally have like dollars locked up somewhere in a bank account, like USDC and USDT. Steve, do we have any workshops coming up on this side?
No true workshops. We have a submission workshop that we'll probably push back
Yeah,
closer
submission
to
works
the
right, get pushed back.
submission
Submissions
deadline.
aren't anywhere near, yeah. But we do have a very nice AMA coming up, which I will find now. Yes, any crypto idea, particularly if it's particularly on point one. So DAO tooling on Solana would be very fundable, would be a very good example. So we have an AMA with Camilla Russo coming up. I'm going to answer that question. What's the best way to get hype for a DAO tooling idea? Honestly, like talk about it on Twitter, like enter a hackathon, win a hackathon. Like this would be my way. Win a hackathon and like tweet about stuff. Any on DAO platforms like Aragon and Colony. DAO House is quite good. Haven't tried Colony. Aragon's okay. Yeah, I have so many questions. Steve, share your calendar if you would like to book in.
Yes, I'll post that.
Very good. If you do want, we have a very good AMA coming up with the founder of the Defiance. So please do for that. How did Encode start out? How did it get funding? That's a good question, Bruno. Encode is we actually self-funded everything. It's a very different approach. We kind of did it based on revenue and reinvesting, and I guess kind of skip the seed stage. And then we have an investment fund attached to Encode, so we have great investor contacts. And just because we wanted to, because it gives us more of a buffer, more supporters around us, we did do a raise recently that we haven't announced yet, but will be announced. With some just friendly investors we knew. So that was important for us. Can a token connect two different ecosystems? What do you mean? Like, yes, but the token is usually for that protocol, and that protocol does something. So a good example, maybe I've kind of been a little bit too unspecific about what a protocol could do, but a good example would be a token can get access to something, or you give people rewards in a certain token for providing some activity to the network. Actually, loads of questions now. Can we build DAOs without smart contracts? That's a really good question, Maurice. A DAO, like in its basic form, is nothing. There's no like fundamental set. Like smart contract would be like, well, it has to have these things. It's self-executing code that runs based on a system of nodes and has lots of different individuals, and people are all running the same software. Like a DAO just means a community run with decentralized governance. It doesn't need a smart contract. I guess the bit of a DAO that I've missed out is like the fact that the individuals taking part in the network are themselves either decentralized protocols, taking part in DAO are themselves decentralized protocols, or anonymous individual like Web3 addresses. Like this is kind of important, the kind of Web3 vision. So DAO could be done with anything. DAO could just be a Discord group. You could just do voting on blockchain and have public individuals. So Ludo's kind of put a thing in that vote coin. Actually, loads of questions coming up. I'm going to reshare my screen. Yeah, you do not necessarily at all need to run DAO with a smart contract. I think if you want to build sophisticated use cases and you want to use it, I think the benefit of using a smart contract is once it's written, it's very hard to change. So the rules are kind of codified, like almost the constitution. This would be one reason to do it, to give people more confidence in the governance structure and the effective decision making of that DAO. Okay, doesn't DAO need to have its own treasury? So if you do have any documentation on how to build it. Okay, so how technology should be structured. Okay, so a DAO, typically, its own treasury could come with, if we go back down here, fundraising for a DAO, it could be from collecting money, it could be from collecting kind of membership fees. One big way is like it could do a token raise. A protocol typically, let's see where it is. A protocol typically owns most of its token, and therefore, if the token has value, then the protocol has this big chunk of money. This DAO kind of has this big chunk of money to kind of spend on. So this is basically a product of fundraising and popularity, and the fact that if a protocol or a DAO owns most of its own token, a DAO is going to have a token that's just a membership token. You need the token to be a member or to vote on stuff. E.g., Bit token with BitDAO, the sponsor of this program. Then that's the way to do it. Now the question is, understanding tokenomics is a big question, and perhaps one for a later day. the kind of short answer is that, what is the short answer for this? Fundamentally, you need the token to be used for something. If we go like all the way back to the definition of utility tokens, where are we? It is a use something, and this use has to be a use. If tokenomics basically means it means two things. One, it means like, does the token fulfill its use case for the protocol usefully? Is it actually making the protocol run better? Usually, token is there to incentivize people to work towards the whole, to be kind of signify membership and to do something integral to the protocol and give the token out as a reward. If we look at Bitcoin, for instance, Bitcoin is the reward for providing your computing power to process transactions, as an example. If the other way is like the tokenomics we typically investors money about is like, how does this token make money? How does its use case make the token valuable? All of them come from like, does the token is the protocol useful, or the DAO useful, and therefore does this token fulfill this use case? And three, is this no, it's kind of just two. Is this protocol useful, and does this token fulfill that use case? And I guess three, does it do so efficiently so that the value of the token equals the value of this utility? Putting all sides security token questions. If you design these three things well, you have a token that is used and it's worth, at very least, represents how valuable the protocol is, or at the very least is linked in some way to how valuable the protocol is. Whether it is or not, I don't know. How to retain someone control the actual founders, CEOs, everything is decentralized. So at the early stage, it's a very good question. At the early stage, like these are just private companies until the token is launched, I guess the public sale. And by the way, this structure doesn't need to be followed, absolutely. So typically, like at this point, the founders have most of the stuff. After a public sale, the founders typically have, after the public release of a token, the team together would typically have 20-25% of the protocol, and therefore the founders, let's say there were 3 founders and there's a big team, I would expect each founders have like 5%, for instance, maybe a bit more, 5 to 10%. So they will not have control, but they still will be able to mobilize a base of people as part of their influence in the community to do something. Whether or not this is enough to kind of control the protocol's direction, I don't know, but it's decentralized, and you'd have to make the decision that the development was complete in inverted commas before you went public. What are some innovations that could happen so we can more effectively fundraise for crypto startups? I think there's been a lot of innovation, particularly like the fact this is all online and investors finding people and finding things to invest in is so easy because of Twitter, Discord, and Telegram. I think we've had a lot of the innovations. I don't know if there's innovations to come as yet. Yeah, I don't know if there's innovations that will come yet, but maybe it's around. No, I don't know if there's any big innovations to come. I think there'd have to be legal innovations to make like the big problem with DAOs is that they, as we talked about last time, they have to kind of, if they're going to interact with the real world, like pay stuff, accept fiat, like employ people, sign contracts, they have to have legal status, and they don't currently. So the big innovation, the big learning, the big change would be them having some legal character. You do have this concept of a DAO in Wyoming, but it's not a DAO. It's not the kind of decentralized structure. It doesn't recognize digital primitives. It doesn't recognize digital users, really. And there's a big problem here because there's a KYC problem. There's like background check problem, which is very hard in crypto. So the TLDR is, let's see if the legals change. I think security versus utility token is a big debate. It's kind of an old debate now, but like I could see it happening again in the future, especially as DAOs get more sophisticated. Okay, so what and how do founders benefit from a DAO? So DAOs typically now tend to refer to like just like the governance structure of managing a protocol once it goes public. Like that's DAO. It's like we have a DAO, like of DAO, is responsible for managing the protocol and its treasury. So like one benefit is like you want this structure because like, again, all DAO here means decentralized organization. Your protocol is an organization. The thing that manages your treasury is an organization. You still got to deploy that money. So that is basically a decentralized governance structure to do so. Again, a DAO is fairly undefined. It can be anything. It can be a voting system. It can be run like a company. other ways to benefit from a DAO. I mean, I wouldn't want, again, if you're launching a DAO, you're doing it for one of these three benefits. Like, you want to have an investment DAO like BitDAO. You want to kind of have a purpose or pressure group, like that's a way to benefit. But I think if the question is kind of, I'm a founder, why do DAOs count for me? It's because you'll probably want to have one to manage your protocol moving forward, if DAO just represents decentralized company in the future. If you have any information, we'll pass on to this. So we have an event last week we did on DAOs, so that Steve can share the link to, but please have a look. I'll see if I can find it as well. But make sure you stay as part of the hackathon. There's lots of stuff coming along. Please do find me on Twitter, give me a follow, tweet me out, say you come to this event, I'll give you a retweet, which I'm always very happy to do. Otherwise, guys, please do book in a call with Steve if you want to do a one-on-one. Happy. Thank you very much for joining this event, and we look forward to seeing you all soon.